haven't contacted my Airbnb host. I'm hoping she's going to be there. But her name's Theresa, and I think she's half Brazilian, half American. I'm like about an hour and a half late. So I haven't slept in 48 hours, and it's now like, oh, I don't know, I got in at 5:30 this morning. I can't wait to just crash into bed.
I should know by now this never happens. The moment I arrive, Theresa invites me to a little party she's having in her courtyard. Then early the next morning, her friend Julie invites me out to breakfast. And then by that point, I'm just so curious to explore my new neighborhood that even though some people have told me it's not so safe to carry my tripods and expensive film equipment on the street alone, I still set off anyway and strategically hide my tripod behind trees when I'm filming so no one sees it. Oh my gosh, this is what I was looking for. This is the Brazil, the Rio that I dreamed of, you know, like down by the beach, Copacabana, Ipanema, there's no soul, like, I don't know, it's just tourists and hotels, and it just didn't feel real. And here there is so much color and texture and graffiti and these lush tropical trees and life, like real life, like people just catching the bus and sitting in a cafe and walking their children to school. I'm so excited that I live in this neighborhood. And last night when there was the party around at Theresa's place, like, you just get this real sense that it's a neighborhood and people care about each other, and you don't get that down by the beach. I don't know, it still is a bit of danger, like they say someone could just drive by and steal my camera, but I mean, Julie was just saying to me, she's like, you know, nothing's ever happened, it's super safe. She's just waiting, left her suitcase out the front of the cafe when we were having breakfast. I don't know, I think you've just kind of got to be aware, as in most places when you're traveling.
What was the last one? We were in the United States, and just as we pulled into this parking spot, Kate turns to me and goes, "Mommy, people don't smile as much here."
Oh, really?
Yeah. And she said, you know, why is that?
And why do you think it is?
Culture here is very much about kind of the moment.
Yeah.
And it's less hung up on future plans and problems. Mm-hmm. Because if everybody here were constantly thinking about all their problems and the future,
yeah, they
would be miserable.
Right.
No, I mean, there's just not as much opportunity, and there's not as much to... So people are really focused on the present, and I think that's what a lot of the kind of vitality of the culture comes from that. Yeah. And I think the fact that there's all the nature around, and it's tropical, the African influence on the culture, the indigenous influence on the culture, all of these kinds of things mix together, yeah, and create this much more kind of euphoric, upbeat experience of life. Yeah. I mean, that's what draws me here. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And I turned to her and I said, honey, that's why we live there. Yeah, well, nothing against the United States. Yeah, you know? There's a lot of, I mean, certainly a lot of these issues, yeah, that we have here don't exist there. Yeah. Everything has its positives and negatives. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Or in the US, how could you create more of that kind of feeling of joy and everything without all of the kind of the planning, you know, the kind, yeah, of planning oriented visioning culture, because the US is very, you know, what do you want to do in 20 years? Yeah. How do you get there? Yeah, yeah. It's very much about paving a way for yourself, improving your life. It's very, what are you going to get down the road? Yeah, you know?
Yeah. Don't you think this is such an interesting comment? I think it is, particularly because in all the time I've spent living in Italy, also known for its Dolce Vita, the Italians in the south have this in common with Brazilians. They don't focus too much on future plans. And in school I was always told you need to know your 5-year plan, your 10-year plan, but maybe this mentality is actually leading us further away from happiness.
I've known that I wanted to devote my life to, you know, improving the world, yeah, in, yeah, the broadest sense. Yeah. Since I was early teens. Mm-hmm. To this day, I don't think this is what I want to do with my life. It is what I'm doing with my life. Yeah, yeah. I mean, wherever I feel useful, wherever I feel like I can generate the biggest impact with who I am and where I am, that's what I prefer to do. People think of Rio, they tend to think of these two extremes, you know, yeah, Carnival and New Year's Eve and parties, celebration, the beach, the beauty. Or they think of crime and violence and this dark side that comes out in the news, in the media. Yeah. And they associate those with kind of the South Zone with the wealthy area and the favelas.
Yeah.
As if it's this kind of two extremes, is that clear?
Yeah.
And to be honest, a lot of the positive things about Rio come from the favelas.
Yeah, yeah.
And the favelas, you know, all of the popular culture people think about, carnival, samba, you know, the informal nature kind of comes from these communities and influences the whole city and really makes it inviting and welcoming. And then there's a handful of favelas where there's extreme crime, and those end up making the news, becoming very visible, and that the visibility generated for those communities generates this really negative stigma, which is supported by the elite and the people here who have been bred into wealth or born into wealth, and who, you know, think of these communities also as this horrible thing because they've been taught that since they were born.
Right.
And their ancestors were all the way back to slavery, and that's literally when favelas were formed, is out of slavery.
Theresa tells me that as a single mother and the head of an NGO, she wouldn't be able to do any of this work if she didn't have the supplementary income from renting out the apartment on her property. And after all of my conversations with her and her friends, I keep thinking how what we see in a movie like City of God or in the headlines of a news story as Rio gears up for the Olympics is just one story, one perspective, and often a skewed one at that, and that we're often guilty of judging a city before we've even heard what really lies at its heart. Thank you guys so much for writing such lovely things recently in the comments on YouTube and on Instagram and everything. You have no idea, like, it really motivates me to work harder and get better at filming and editing. Speaking of which, all of my cameras broke, all of them, can you believe it? So I'm recording this on my iPhone. If you want to see the next part of my adventure in Rio, it's a really good episode. I talk all about how to do your passion for a living and what you may not realize about that with this guy who's a photographer. Just click here to see past episodes, click here, and to plan your own trip through Airbnb, click here. Thanks to Airbnb because they are the sponsor, and thank you to you guys for watching. Please come back next time. Bye.